Hey!
Hey!
This
Hey!
er,
Hey! You!
yeah,
Listen.
yeah. Oh, okay.
Alright, everyone, welcome back to the Dreary Eerie. This is going to be a talk about D&D, oddly enough. Isn't that
Holy
surprising?
cow. We're
That,
doing D&D finally? No, we're not. We're
that,
lied to you.
that is fucking shocking, ain't it? No. We are going to talk about something a bit related to D&D. I mostly did this video at the request of one of our group members who really wanted us to talk about his character, the
Meatball.
meatball. The meatball. We'll get into talking about him a bit into this video, but I decided I would also use this as an opportunity to further discuss another one of our characters. This is Brendan's character of
Oh,
Thames Quintel, and
James
Brendan's here.
Quintel. He's my favorite character. I should point this out. He really is.
Now it's actually rather appropriate, I think, that we'll be talking about the meatball, or the metal, as his true title is, and Thames at the same time, because they are both the most.
Intertwined. Yeah.
Yes, they're not only intertwined, but they're both simultaneously the most storied characters in our D&D group, as well as the most reviled by the majority of the population.
Some people don't like Thames because I use him so much. It's almost an addiction. I insert him wherever I can.
But you see, when I insert Papa Bear into everything, no
Everyone's
one no
fine.
one bats an eye about Papa Bear, because a frickin' southern fried bugbear is just perfectly fine.
I think they're just like completely like jealous of the what Thames has accomplished in canon.
Of the Thames canon. Uh,
Yeah.
so I suppose we'll begin at the beginning, like most stories, and talk about the origins of Thames Quintel, how it
Well,
was created as a weird broth brewing in the mental soup cauldron of Brendan's head.
basically, this he was my first character, and he will be always be my favorite. I was trying to figure out what kind of character I wanted when I was starting to play D&D, and I was like, "Hey, Liam, is there a kind of mix between combat and magic class?" He went through them, and then he said, "Well, there's druid who can shapeshift." I remember that was the last one he told me. I'm like, "That's the one. That's it. I'm playing a druid."
I had always wanted Brendan to go with the druid because it was the most Celtic of classes.
I don't think that we were really. I was really that much into Ireland yet.
No, he had yet to be properly indoctrinated. After the shillelagh beating, it all changed.
Yeah, it was. It did. It was great. And so basically, I really it was the first time playing my D&D. So the character was really half baked at the time. Also had one of the worst introductions I've ever known. So he comes out of the woods when you're fighting a Triceratops. Okay. First of all, first session to D&D. Can you introduce this guy to a Triceratops? Which
Well,
is
we were introduced to the Triceratops rather rudely.
he
uh,
comes across the plain. Oh, what?
Random Triceratops comes charging across the plain, no explanation given. We had no idea this was dinosaur country. Uh, and our party, about 3 men strong, is expected to take on this Triceratops at a level when our wizard has just barely acquired Magic Missile. That is, if we had a wizard.
We didn't. Actually, that's why I became a spellcaster because Liam was like, "Hey, we need a spellcaster." So I'm like, "Is there a combat spellcaster?" And it
Yeah, we learned a
Druid.
lot about having teams entirely with meat walls, and in many ways, that's still our party today.
Yeah,
It's very odd because most of the time when people learn how game breaking the caster classes are, they want to switch to caster classes.
which is why I've never played anything but a caster class. Because ooh, 20th level druid can just keep shapeshifting. There is no brakes on the druid train.
Yeah, and that's in 5th edition where the druid is essentially weaker than he was in 3.5, but still manages to be game breaking, especially with
Horribly.
contagion.
Oh,
Contagion.
Contagion's so good. Contagion's another fame story though. So he's introduced, and I was like, I don't know. I think my favorite part about Thames is the fact that I introduced him with the backstory that his whole family is turned into ravens, and that he was supposed to be like a plague doctor at first, wearing the proper clothing for that.
Hmm.
Second time we used him, we completely ditched any of that.
Nah, a lot of people wanted to go with the Plague Doctor motif at some time or another. SCP-049, my cure is most effective kind of shit.
No, Thames was originally, hey, I'm going to steal all the eyeballs I can because that's Thames's strange
That, event-
fetish, I guess.
that eventually we rechristened him as this crazy motherfucking druid. He did really eccentric things. And I remember I came up with this point where he should just have woad on him all the time. So he's actually really under some fucking hallucinogenics all the time.
That never kicked in, but there was some really eccentric things for a druid to be doing.
He believes his wood armor is screaming at him.
That was my favorite. That was that was Thames. My wood armor is constantly screaming at me. My cat keeps yelling at me to get more cups. My life is eternal hell.
Ah, yes, we can talk about his union with the character of Lycor at some point. That was the weirdest DMing decision I've ever made.
And it caused me to make a small jokes about it and do horrible things with the characters.
What we need to remember is literally Lycor was created after the fact of seeing Al Chestbreach introducing the character of Condor for the first time in his Sims videos.
And
that is why Lycor sounds exactly like Condor.
Lycor needs all the cups. I can't really do it because it was originally Liam.
The cat guardian of the cups.
So I think the first thing I did with Thames was, hey, you're in a forest. Here's a bugbear camp. I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna go flee because I can't do anything. I'm not strong enough. I believe Nick was DMing and he said, well, they're hurting animals. I'm like, okay, I'm not strong enough. You should probably go do something about it. Me? Fine. And then I concoct this crazy scheme to give a bird a stick. The bird will light the stick on fire in one of the fires in the camp, and then light the camp on fire.
And that's kind of the establishing character moment for Thames, I found.
It really was.
The concept that we would eventually keep going with to this very day is essentially Thames does not do things the textbook way, even if he could theoretically do so.
Yeah. And
unless, of course, when it comes to casting Contagion, then fuck yeah.
Contagion in back in 3.5 when Summon Animal was broken as hell and was basically just there to annoy the DM.
Contagion in 5e, breaking the game.
Because I also Thames used to summon tons and tons of hippogriffs. Like, yes. Limitless hippogriffs.
But, yeah, I recall Thames' plan to burn the incredibly flammable houses of the bugbears at least partially succeeded.
I would count it as a complete success, because I didn't get caught for it, and B, it worked pretty well. I mean, that bird made it pretty far.
As I recall, my strategy for that fight was, we need cannons.
That was Huxley. Huxley we'll talk about another time if you want to.
Yeah, I probably should. Considering he's somehow risen in popularity among my social group in recent months.
Every character you make is a meme.
True.
Everyone.
And we will come to realize that. If I ever bring them onto the channel, they might actually become real memes.
I would appreciate that. I would appreciate if Thames became a meme. Then what was the next big thing for Thames?
We had a lot of unmemorable side questing for a while.
Oh, side quests were terrible. And a lot of scrapped campaigns.
Yeah, tons of scrap campaigns. I believe... Well, of course, the biggest accomplishment we need to talk about is the gaining of the airship.
Yes, that's a big one.
Which I will admit, as a DM at the time, I was being spiteful towards the other players at that point.
There's reasons for it, though. I think I want to talk about. Can we bring up J-Dog?
Can we bring up J-Dog? Yeah, we can. Of course.
Can we say his name?
He's given complete. He's in the group. I mean, he'll probably appear in some videos soon.
Okay, so Jacob. I'm not going to speak illy of. Even though I could.
Yeah. Well.
Basically, one of his campaigns, I went to a pet store Thames went to a pet store, walked in, asked to touch a poisonous spider, see if he had any. He did. Um, Other things I saw were a giant freaking snake.
I think I pulled my DM tenure at this time.
I think you did. Was that when you became permanent DM for life?
I believe so, yeah. When I
Yeah.
gained when the group suddenly gathered round and Nick walked out of the room and then presented me with the crown and scepter
Yeah.
and claimed that I was the once and future GM.
So what Thames does is he kills the shopkeeper, throwing the spider at his face. Spider bites him. Shopkeeper is about to leave the building, like, and call for the guards. Then I believe Liam challenges that call, saying that it was a small town, there would be no guards. Liam being permanent DM, and secret DM, because he's secretly always in charge, is his idea is said that's probably true. This causes the no guards to show up. I unleash the snake. By the time the party comes and checks on me, the paladin, because metagaming, is like, I'm gonna check on the body, and I don't believe you, Thames. I'm like, come on, you have no proof. He's like, and
That is
so
half of Thames's dialogue, is just, come on.
that's half of all my characters. Come on, just let me do it.
You want hashish? Is another good portion of it.
So the DM it says, okay, I guess I'll roll to see how much of the body's consumed. DM rolls, looks. Well, there is no body now. Me nods. I've gotten away with murder, and that was another big character point for Thames, where he became much more homicidal.
Thames became a very vengeful, possibly sociopathic person.
I believe I've killed 5 shopkeepers with Thames.
It's weird with Thames, where when he starts to get really depressed, he goes and murders people. That is definitely a sociopathic tendency.
The one time there was a store owner that, let's see, yeah, he wouldn't accept song as payment, and so, he didn't accept song as payment, and basically, Thames goes and kills someone in a bar,
Yeah, that was...
stealth style, by becoming a flea and biting his brain, instantly killing him. The next
He was
day,
a commoner.
yeah, it was a commoner. I managed to get the shopkeeper blamed for it, and thus, I got that commoner sent to jail, and possibly dead.
One doesn't normally expect druids to be so devious. That was one of the most blatant examples of me pulling the I'm the primary DM card. But then there was the time I was actually DMing, and that was when Thames had his greatest triumph.
I got an airship.
Essentially, at this point in the game, our party's just slogging along, going on the main quest line, going from city to city, set piece to set piece, and everyone's really just belittling Thames. At this point, basically no one talks to him or refers to him as though he's around, and when he gets referred to, people call him the druid.
No one's. Tam, your character was the first one to ask Thames his name. I remember that.
Tam was a good character too. Eventually he'll be a meme. His weapons
Yeah.
are kind of a meme already.
What, he uses Goku's staff, so I mean.
Yeah. So essentially, at this point, people are just ignoring Thames to some extent, and I believe that it was just oh, he's the goofy druid. So I, as the DM, am what can I do to make it so that Thames isn't getting completely fucked over here? So, as I recall, Brendan had the idea of getting an airship because I had previously mentioned how great airships were in D&D, and being the DM, I had of course decided that the time period we were in was modern enough to have early firearms, and they probably had airships, uh, or air vessels of some kind. So he decided to go and get an airship, and airships are not actually are surprisingly inexpensive for a higher level adventurer to
which
acquire the
which
use
we
of them.
all were at that point. Except when you're a druid, apparently you're supposed to be broke or something.
Yeah, so that was mostly because he just wasn't getting anything from the adventures. Uh,
No.
Partly because of, not appearing often enough at the end of adventures. So he goes in there and he didn't have the money for the airship. Uh, but he really did come up with a rather ingenious plot. He essentially intimidated the guy into building this ship and accepting, like, essentially he had to accept some gems as payment as well, and then he had to basically he
Give a
was
down payment on it,
yeah,
and
he gave a down payment. He was supposed to give the rest later. uh
but we kind of forgot and kind of may have kidnapped the guy when I was taking it for a test drive, and he kind of got kidnapped and forgotten about, and no one remembers that character.
yeah, essentially
And like two campaigns later, I'm like, wait a second, we left a guy on that airship.
Thames essentially had it in a situation where he essentially, as soon as the airship was gone, he did essentially kidnap the guy, and therefore did not have to pay money for it. At this point, I will admit that the heroes were also in good with the king, so they could get away with with a few things, kidnapping and murder, perhaps among them.
So basically, this airship became very plot essential to many things relating to Thames.
It was incredibly useful. I don't know why people don't give it more credit. A lot of times people
Like,
are just
then
like,
there's Luke, who was like, well, I'm dismantling the airship because
no,
fuck you.
a lot of times people were just like, the airship. But we had an awesome battle with a green dragon on the airship that never would have happened if the airship didn't exist. That fight would have been a lot fucking harder if you didn't have an airship.
Yeah, it would have.
You know what hell it is to fight a dragon while you're stuck on the ground? It's
Oh,
practically
it's terrible.
impossible.
Yeah. The airship has become a major part of Thames canon to an incredible degree. But, like, to becoming the hero of the Kingdom of Men, because I had the ability to say, well, I'm on my airship. I'm just going to stop these people from assassinating the King of Men, which was a cementing moment in, hey, I may be a horrible sociopathic murderer, but I'm still a good guy.
Yes.
Because the team, I don't know why, had descent. Two of them have decided, I'm just going to kill the king and kill Nerul or something.
Yeah, it was a weird power trip, which will oddly enough go into the next character that we're talking about, because he is one of those people that decided to go on this plot derailing. And of course, I'll admit, I have improved immensely from the time that we were playing then. I was not the primo uber
DM.
DM that I am now. I made mistakes.
Mistakes were definitely made there.
The campaign was allowed to become monotonous. I'm not going to deny that. Part of it does have to do with lack of enthusiasm on the player's side, but
I was
regardless,
pretty infused when I got the airship.
some ridiculous shit went down. The airship was a pretty big accomplishment. So now we have we now have Thames Quintel, savior of the human race, who in one fell swoop has his airship taken away from him.
And is told, so basically, King of Men is this god king we have, and two of the players go and try to kill him, and we're working for him.
The King of Men is essentially if you took King Arthur and crossed him with the mythical hero Cuchulainn.
Once again, Liam likes Irish mythology.
I love it
a lot.
immensely, so that's what you end up with. He even had an instant death spear.
So basically, Thames goes in. It's like, I can win this fight. I can help win. I can be the hero. I can be the person I wanted. I can be the change I want to see in the world. He goes in, attempts the contagion, fails because I'm a squishy druid. Thames is a squishy druid, and eventually, one of the players, being clever, decided, hey, I'll just put a bag of holding inside a bag of holding, and bam, I don't have to deal with Thames. Thankfully, Thames was already in good with Cathbad, another Irish reference.
Yes.
Um,
The druid of 100 students.
so Thames gets teleported out of that pocket dimension. However, it is too late to kill the metal, which is the character we were of course going to talk about next,
Mhm.
and which
The
it's
two villains are trapped forever in the in the other dimension. At least that's how the canon goes.
yeah.
In reality, we kind of caved and we bullshitted a solution out of it that wasn't really a solution, but whatever. In my mind canon, those two defiant bastards are still rotting in the multiverse. One of them long dead, the other one an immortal forced forever to just sit there like the bitch that he is.
Yeah, so Thames eventually later in campaigns gets known as, like, he's told, hey, you're going to be forever remembered as the guy who tried to save the King of Men in the God Hero.
The King of
Unfortunately,
Men later perished in a completely unrelated incident where he literally fought a world-destroying monster.
and then Thames was blamed for creating that world-destroying monster and had a mental breakdown in the middle of a city on a water fountain. It was terrible. Led
Yes.
some of the greatest dialogue ever.
He could only be comforted by, I don't know, random immigrant dude from another country. His name happened to be Huxley.
He knew Huxley already, actually.
Mm, true, true.
And
He
yeah,
adventured with a lot of folks.
and if there's any character dialogue from that group that I will remember and treasure, it was probably that one. Because that was some really, actually, sincere character dialogue that happened. Basically, Fame says how no one actually cares about him, and he's never remembered as he should have been. And it was sad.
It was sad, but now Thames has left his footprint on the universe, uh,
So horribly. It's
in the
outrageous.
form of a actually rather successful airship company, though.
So
So
basically, there's two verses. The one I DM in is Fame's verse, where it's the idea if we took Thames's id, right? That's
yeah,
pleasure principle. Where we took that alone and nothing else, it made that God.
yeah. This is the thing where I would talk about as a DM how good it is to incorporate. Say if you're creating your own world, which is difficult to do, but I kind of did do it because I like to work from my own stuff and not be tied to other people's canon. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, this is where you get to build a world around the player characters. And if you're leaping further into the future in a different campaign, you'll hear like whispers or like legends of these people that did great deeds in the past, or perhaps they're even well documented. And that's where your players get to see that their PCs made a difference because they're actually being recognized for something that they did.
Which is really cool because in the campaign, all campaigns from that point onward, if I can no longer play Thames Quintel because he's permanently an NPC at this point. Like he's literally everywhere. Any campaign we do, even if it's not like D&D, he's there somewhere.
Yeah, that's mostly because of that's mostly author appeal on my part, because I really like Thames, so I like to add him to things. He's also the character that's most likely to show up in places where it makes no sense.
I was recently DMing Call of Cthulhu, and because basically made a joke because I was bringing up a campaign we were doing in Shadowrun. I brought up the intro to it as a joke, and he said, and then this man in armor comes in. I'm like, okay, I get the joke. And then I went with it, and Fame showed up, and he was like, "You're losing credibility as a DM," and I'm like, "I know, my credibility's already
He
gone."
lost so much credibility as a keeper. He's just like, yeah, by the way, I'm gonna have Thames Quintel show up, riding an airship.
He needed his cameo.
It's gonna be huge. It's gonna be
It's gonna be huge.
huge.
But no, he did show up, and I'm not stating whether that was can't actually happened or that was just some strange drunken vision. I'll never state it because
All
that's my
right.
credibility.
So we've dwelled on Thames for a
Fame.
bit, as he's entered formally into basically every canon imaginable. Oddly enough, he did not venture so far as our Fallout role-playing canon, but he did.
He's
Instead, it was the reverse. The Fallout campaign entered D&D in odd ways, which I'll probably talk about later because though
we'll have
that Christmas was somewhat disappointing, the Santa Claus fight is the highlight of it.
It always is. We'll just need to do an episode on the Christmas specials.
Indeed. Uh, so yeah, we talked about Thames, a great
Let's talk.
hero with a host of mental problems.
I could talk more about him, but we should move on to the metal.
Yeah, in this case, because I am yeah, I guess we are on a bit of a time constraint. Anyways, we're going to talk about the metal, who conceptually speaking is perhaps one of the most interesting characters.
Characters,
Because
but
I will be completely honest, I've always admired Logan's ability to create a character backstory and to play that character to a T. He was in our drama class in high school, and he was quite good at it. So,
mhm.
as a character actor, there are like very few that I found. I found he has a natural ability for it, for the most part. But also, the downside with that is the coolness comes at the cost of practicality.
It does. So we've often referred to Meeple as the shit wrecker of the group. He's basically he derails campaigns really easily.
Hmm. Well, because you have such an immense presence as him, I'll get into the backstory. Um, and it's a doozy of one.
Oh,
Essentially, this was when Jacob was DMing. We wanted to find a way to get Logan into the group. At the time, we were low on players, and I already knew Logan from drama and knew he was a pretty good actor. So I had no problem with him being in the group. But he had this character concept, knowing a lot about the D&D verse. We do take a lot from the original books, the original settings, like a lot of their gods. So he knew about the god of death, which was Nerul. And his character, I know this is gonna sound so noobish.
edgy and
This is gonna be so
yeah.
newbie and immature to anyone who actually plays D&D. But it was really cool at the time. He's the son of the god of death, Nerul. Essentially, as with many sons of gods of death, he proved to be too dangerous and essentially rebelled against his father, and as punishment, his father cast him into the realm of mortals to languish there. And essentially, the medal, as his title that he gave himself, a reference to the fact that his original class was he was a bard of the heavy metal variety. He had some
which
sort of magical electric guitar or some shit.
which I always like. That's an interesting idea, and I'd kind of like to do that, but at the same time,
So that's where his nickname, the Metal, comes from. He has a real name, but everyone calls him the Metal. So that's
I
where
don't actually know his real name. I've never been told it.
his name is Dayrule, actually.
They rule.
It's an interesting, like, it's kind of like there's actually a few actual languages out there where that's like a naming convention where your name is basically like your father's except with a different change to it. So anyways, that's where the metal gets introduced. I don't recall when we first introduced him, actually. I do know that his goal has always been to usurp his father at the throne of hell.
Which derails campaigns so much.
Yes. You know how in D&D they generally support that a character has like a character goal? Well, when your goal is to kill one of the gods, it really does become all-consuming.
It does.
To the point where unless the god is the antagonist of the story, it will get in the way, as it did here.
hmm
So again, I can't recall the exact first adventure he was brought into, because I know he didn't start off trying to kill the king of all men.
No, he didn't. I know he was introduced before Flames, but I don't know how much before. I remember that Fames used to like look up to him, like yeah. That was when Fames was like 16, so
He was really badass, had regeneration power, had a lot of immunities, had like a constant tongues spell on him at all times, so he could like speak all the languages. It was overpowered, but we enjoyed it, especially at the time, because he was a well-played character.
hmm
And he was acted well, and for a long time we had no problem with it, for the most part, because, like, our group, as I've mentioned before on this channel is very much predominantly into role-playing, not so much in the combat aspect. So it was good. For a while, he developed a strong relationship with actually a few of the characters in the group. Specifically with my characters, interestingly enough. This was when, I believe, Nick was DMing for quite some time.
This was.
What I would call the Nick era of DMing. Which Nick is not a bad DM. I would put him as our secondary DM in terms of actual tenure.
Lots of combat. Lots and lots of combat, though.
Yeah, he's the opposite of me to some extent. I'm heavy on the role-playing. Sometimes I forget to even put in combat encounters for a while. Nick is all about really big, meaty combat encounters, to the extent where we've had numerous games where our party literally had to turn back and couldn't continue because we were just so beaten down. And that happens in normal games, but with Nick, it's like almost like he wasn't expecting it. He's like, oh, you're turning back? And it's like, yeah, I blew all my fucking spell slots. Our fighter is almost dead. We gotta go back.
Even the druid's out of spells, even though he was hiding my pants the day before.
Yeah. So, yeah, the Metal developed some really unorthodox friendships. He developed a friendship with the lawful good commander by the name of Huxley, who was my character. That was the closest friendship in the group, surprisingly enough. I remember the one thing I can give my initial Bard character credit for is he did have a good relationship with Luke's character. So his words were biting and ferocious. So in any case, and the Metal also got along with my character of Papa Bear rather well. Mostly because when you got down to it, when it came to combat, they were both bloodthirsty monsters.
This is true, and it's some of the greatest And, like, Logan still loves Papa Bear. Actually, a lot of people still do.
Well, I was saying Logan helped create Papa Bear.
Yeah,
He said to me, wouldn't it be great if we had a character that was like Papa Bear from the Goldilocks story? And then while we were like talking about it, I started to do like this weird southern accent and things like that. The main reason for that is I had like just gone on a trip to Washington D.C. And I had met some people there that had southern accents, and I was like, you know what? And I had eaten a lot of Popeyes, so I was like, you know what? Yeah.
You know what? That's kind of hard to believe that was the trip to D.C., though, because, man, that was not that long ago. I haven't been playing D&D for that long.
Yeah, believe it or not. That was the scenario. And it's a really weird inspiration. But yeah, also, believe it or not, there was another connection with Thames in that Logan, most certainly the Metal actually viewed Thames in a relatively positive light for quite some time, interestingly enough.
And Thames viewed him in a positive light for quite some time.
Yeah, they actually got along rather well. But the Metal was always under the context, in the context of, these people are useful to me, and like they can serve my purpose. As long as they're loyal to me, I'm fine with them.
And that kind of stopped when he tried to kill the King of Men, and then jokes ensued about me and Thames and the Metal, and it was great.
Everyone was against the Metal at that point, but a lot of our players who would have opposed him were just too tired. Okay, so first we need to talk about the height of badassery for the Metal, which was on the airship ride, a green dragon appears. Now, what people know about green dragons is they're normally relatively deceptive creatures, and no one in the party had any knowledge of green dragons, because in this world, dragons were incredibly rare. Most of them are supposed to have died out at this point. That was part of the story of the realm. So the green dragon promises to lead them essentially where they're going. He says, you know, I know the way. Of course, his actual plan is to lead them into some mountains where their ability to move around is restricted, and he'll fuck them up. Fortunately for them, they rolled good sense motive, he rolled shit bluff, and they realized that this dragon was probably lying to them. So
I missed this whole thing, by the way. Like, I wasn't there for this battle, unfortunately.
So this epic fight ensues on the airship. Luke has like a dwarven thrower, and he's just fucking that dragon up with that. The dragon's breathing poison everywhere, which fucks up a few people. Luke had a really badass rogue character at this point who was just raining down, like, crossbow bolts on this
Hmm.
dragon, and he was doing pretty good there, too. So the metal, though, is a bit of a glory hound as far as a character is concerned. He always likes to get
Ooh.
the final kill and the flashiest kill. So he jumps down from the airship to
Yeah.
land on the dragon and basically put his scythe up against the dragon's throat, and he is betting that his godlike regeneration powers will allow him to come back to life after plummeting several hundred feet to the ground. So he falls down with the dragon and slices its neck open, killing it, and he dies. He hits into the ground and he dies. But then godly regeneration powers kick in and he gets back up. And I believe this might have been one of the first big missteps, was the idea of allowing him to, like, come back to life, because that made him definitely feel like he was immortal.
Yeah.
But in any case,
Yeah.
that's beyond us. So for some reason, I think it was after they stole some magical weapons and they thought they were really badass,
Hey, we're badass now. We
him and
got.
Lawrence the Ranger were like, we're gonna go kill the King of Men and take his shit so that we can build, like, a supernatural army or some shit to go fight Nerul. I guess under the idea that if you kill the King of Men, you become the King of Men or some shit like that. And I
Not
kept
how it works.
and I kept telling them, you know this is, like, ridiculous, right? The King of Men is immortal. He's literally the strongest being that anyone knows about on this planet. But, you know, player characters tend to think that they're big shit. They tend to think that they're, like, the strongest motherfuckers out there.
I still think we can kill those turtle dragons. I'm just saying. We can stun lock them.
Well, they're dragon turtles, not turtle dragons.
Sorry, turtle dragons.
Their turtle dragons would be interesting, just like this dragon wearing a turtle shell. Try and hit me now, adventurers. I have an armor class of 30. So yes, that was when the meatball. We officially started calling him the meatball at this point.
As a cover name.
Decides to go kill King of Men. Those who are resisting him are Nick's character, Rovnar the Paladin, one of our most iconic group members, I would say.
Training montage.
Yeah, training montage. Synthar, but he doesn't get involved in the fight because at this point Luke's really just tired. The only one who outright goes after them is Thames, though Huxley tried his hardest. He tried his hardest to convince the metal that this was the wrong path, but metagame.
Metagame happened really hard.
Yeah, because, as I recall, I swear, they must have been drunk or something. Jacob had the advantage of being able to metagame to Logan, whereas I would not bring myself to do that with one of my characters. So Huxley just attempted to use his friendship as much as possible, but the metal could not be swayed. So he went and he rode to fight the King of Men, and they bust through the guard halls, and essentially, the only reason why the guards stopped fighting them is the King of Men is just like, you there, intruder, if you wish to challenge me, then a fight with me is what you will get. And him and the metal have an admittedly awesome duel, which only lasted as long as it did because I was going easy on them.
Yes, yeah.
And laser death spears abound. Eventually the metal is essentially beaten, but due to bullshit regeneration mechanics and rules lawyering, it was stated that, you know, oh, he keeps getting back up and fighting, and it's like, bullshit.
Yeah, it was terrible. So basically what Thames tries to do is he breaks in, tries to contagion them both, make Lawrence blind, I think, so that because he's an archer, so he can't shoot.
It was perhaps one of my saddest moments in that I gave up the right to DM's righteous retribution against players fucking up the campaign to preserve the status quo.
Yeah. I guess we should point out there was some metagame between you and me at the time, because I was trying to figure out how to kill them, because, you know, saving the campaign and such.
Yeah, but it was only metagaming to the sense that I was telling you what would be a logical thing that was in your power to do. It wasn't too much. I mean, in all honesty, I should have just rocks falled them. But again, status quo, status quo.
Thames dodges the manages not to get sucked into the other dimension.
Yes. So in any case, now we can get on to the Metal's later adventures, where the Metal still keeps going on with essentially the same character. It is always very interesting to see him, and now we've got. Actually, just recently we jumped into a new campaign where the Metal is one of the leading figures in it.
This time it's the quest to kill Nerul, so it can't derail the campaign.
Yes, when the quest is actually to kill Nerul. I just love how, essentially, the plot begins. Nick is DMing again, and he's like, "You've been thinking for hundreds of years how to de-seat your father, but you realize now that what you don't need an army. You need a group of elite warriors." And the Metal's just thinking to himself in, like, the thinker pose, and he's like, "Papa Bear." The first character he thinks of is just like, "Papa Bear, I need him." Portal opens to hell. He goes in, meets with Papa Bear, who's essentially running the place at this point. Well, he's got, like, it's weird, he's got, like, his own land to himself, because everyone's like, "Wow, this guy's pretty fucking evil. We should give him, like, a house here." Then they break out Montague Quintel, who's another interesting character, and they break out Zenith, who I already covered on this channel, but Zenith is a pretty amazing character in his own right, though often overlooked.
So I'm going to give Liam some credit here. When he introduced every character in this campaign, it was beautifully done.
It was funny because I was not the DM, as you recall. I was Lord Papa Bear.
No, you weren't, but you did it so well.
Yeah, so Papa Bear is a resident of Hell, so he knows everyone who lives in Hell. And essentially he gave everyone brilliant character introductions, despite knowing actually very little about at least Montague, and additionally not being the DM.
Yeah, like, cause you described Montague as not being like Thames.
Yeah.
He's not just Hippogriffs and Contagion.
Yeah, he's not just Hippogriffs and Contagion, which, as you've been listening to this video, you know that Thames is mostly Hippogriffs and Contagion.
It's not so much Hippogriffs anymore. I've kind of moved away because it's not as BS anymore, so...
So yeah, that's the story of the meatball, his great derailing of the plot, but I must admit, other 90% of the time, the Metal was a fun character to have around, though I personally always preferred Nightbat.
I don't know. Nightbat was kind of a douche last time we played. I mean...
Last time we played, he kind of was. He was
Hey,
in his hand.
I'm gonna need to strip search you before you enter the Bat Caravan.
The Bat Caravan. We'll have to get to that at another point.
Don't touch Finn Quintel. Come on.
That's a story of our two of our most divisive characters, what they accomplished. I believe that they both made a great contribution to canon and in, like, terms of Thames out of universe canon. If you're still listening to this video, go check out our Cat Thulu gameplay video featuring our terrific friend Ross, who is
that was some of my favorite role-playing I've ever done with Cat Thulu.
AKA Domino in that game. He is an absolutely terrific actor, of course.
He did the drama with us, and he went all the way through like us.
But you'll see Cat Thulu. You'll see that Thames Quintel is there. There's tons of ridiculous in-jokes that even Ross didn't get.
So many.
So that's the impact of Thames Quintel, and that's the impact of the Metal. Really, when you think about it, the Metal brought about an end to, in a way, his betrayal of the party brought an end to the bullshit era of D&D in our games to a good extent. Because at that point, it had all been, like, lollipops and fucking rainbows, and everyone was doing anything they could. I've already made a video where I talk about how I was a headless horseman for a while, and how Nick was a fricking stone golem. But
that wasn't exactly the end. The end was when we said, okay, stop with the homebrew.
Yeah, but essentially after the Metal's betrayal of the party there. There was no more, like, bullshitting of high fantasy. There were no quick paths to power anymore. I said, essentially, we're going back to basics.
Mm-hmm. Which was very good, actually.
Mm-hmm. Did so much better for us. Because, most groups, they'd say start at the basic stuff, but with us, we started way out in left field.
We started with homebrew and weird things, and
Yeah.
I was sitting around, like, I think the second campaign, we were like, okay, no more homebrew.
So perhaps it cleansed the palate. We had an unsuccessful attempt to create another campaign afterwards, which fell into ruin.
We have a lot of unsuccess. I think we've mentioned we've never completed a campaign.
The only one that we ever technically completed was the very first campaign. The very first campaign was only technically unfinished because of some inter-party things, and it's difficult because we're all friends, but I have to bring up the fact that we were almost done that campaign, but because of, we didn't get to play the game all too often, that was when the Nick era began.
Mm-hmm. And, well, we're all friends.
Despite the massive amount of symbolic power that I hold within the group, my actual power is substantially less than that of a few other members of the group.
It's strange because I think I hold some strange symbolic on this power on this channel. I don't know why.
Yes.
I get nothing done ever. Which isn't true, I guess. I upload occasionally. I'm just not that active.
Yes.
Usually it's with you.
So that's another that's another of our character videos, I suppose. I think we covered most of the bases. Again, basically decide for yourself. Were these complete fuck-ups? In my opinion, you almost unequivocally have to answer yes, but perhaps some of you think that it was actually a good idea.
Like Thames, I mean, he's a terrible character. Like,
Logan then comments on the video, yeah, it was a good idea. A good time.
I wonder who that is.
Yeah. In any case, that's just been how these characters affect. I believe that those two characters in particular have been incredibly useful for at least shaping canon, and even shaping how we play the game.
Mm-hmm.
I know that there are still people that curse the airship's name for no particular
They curse
reason.
Thames' name in general because of how psychotic I am with the Quintels. We can do that in another episode on how I have this whole established canon.
Yes, the long-ass Quintel bloodline. So that's it. Tell us, when all of you were new fags at D&D, what did you try? What were you? Were you a catfolk samurai?
Oh no! Don't give Harvey ideas.
You were a catfolk samurai. Anyways, we'll see you in the next video. Or,
See ya.
probably not see you, because most of these things are audio, but yeah, see you anyways.
See ya. Bye. Subscribe or something. I don't know.
Ramble, ramble, ramble.
Ramble.